Lovely. Oh, almost.
Yes,
Maybe I
it's
need to be a
recording.
bit more patient. Okay, all right, lovely. So I'm going to get started, if that's okay with everybody, and I'm going to share my screen. And if Anna, if you can tell me that you can see my screen, that would be fantastic, and then we'll get started.
Yes, we can see very well. I can see very well.
Wonderful. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see. And like I said, there will be subtitles on this once we pop it up onto YouTube, and we'll share the link with you afterwards so you can rewatch if you've missed anything. So first of all, welcome. In this session, we are going to be looking at how to update your CV and cover letter if you've already got one. Now, don't worry if you joined and you haven't got one, because we're actually going to give you a little tour of what a CV should look like. And we'll also send you some really handy guides and tips and templates that you can use after the session. We're going to talk about what to put in your CV and also what to update. So if you already have a CV and you just haven't completed it for a really long time, then this is a great session for you to be part of. We are going to be able to explain career breaks as well, and I'll explain what that means when we get. Also, how to update a cover letter, what is a cover letter, because I think that's really important to know. And then finally, we have a question and answer section just at the end where you can answer whatever question you like. And at that point, we'll stop recording so you can be free to ask what you like. Like I said, take lots of notes. We do have a really handy guide that goes with this, which we'll send to you afterwards. And this is part of a full employee at the Battery Centre. One of the first things I want to ask you to do is just to try and keep all of your questions to the end. And also, there's no such thing as a bad question. So even if you think, oh, I feel quite silly asking this, please ask. It's better to ask. And nothing is obvious if it's not obvious to everybody. Okay, so getting started is something that I want to kick us off with. And just the really simple kind of rules here on top tips. So when you're updating your CV, you should try to set aside about half a day where you won't be interrupted. So this actually allows you to go through each part separately and also gives you time to do a final spell check when you've finished your CV. Make sure that you don't have any distractions. So if you're fortunate enough for your children to go to school and you don't have lots of banging and things like that, that's a really great time to do your CV. Try to make sure that you've got a strong Wi-Fi connection. Now, the reason we say this is because there's some really great online tools that you can use that actually help you to build your CV. So you actually don't need to start from scratch if it is the first CV you're ever doing. And I'll give you some links to those in the guides at the end. If possible, try to use a computer or a laptop to create your CV. The reason we say this is because it can be quite hard to change things on a mobile phone. If you don't have access to a CV, if you don't have access to a computer or a laptop, then just speak to your coach at the Battery Centre and they will help get hold of one for you. And then finally, just make sure that you've got everything you need in front of you. So when we say everything you need, some of the things are going to be around work experience. So knowing the dates that you worked in a certain employment, having certificates of any qualifications that you have, so you have the dates on those as well. If you don't have them, it's not the end of the world. It just makes it really easy to get started if you do. And then one of the other things that I think is really important, and we talked about this in the webinar last week, it's about doing some research on the industry or job type that you would like to do or that you're familiar with, because actually that will help you to understand the type of words you need to put in your CV and cover letter. Okay, so what to put in your CV? So when you're applying for jobs, actually your CV is likely to be seen by lots of different people. And some of them will be recruiters that work within the business that you're applying for. And some of them will be with agency recruiters, which means the company has hired a company to help. Um, Both of these CVs, it's really important to clearly state everything that's needed, which I'm going to list for you in just a sec. It gives the recruiter the first impression of who you are. So it's a really great way to kind of show off all of your fantastic skills, how brilliant you are, and it's a great way to get that first interview, which is really important. So the first thing you're going to need in your CV are your personal details. So when we say personal details, we mean your name, your phone number, your email address, all of those sorts of things. You're going to have to put a personal profile into your CV. So this is just a paragraph at the start of your CV that says a little bit about who you are and what you're looking for. And again, we'll show you an example of this shortly. One of the things that lots of people actually forget to put into their CV are a list of the skills that they have. Now, one of the ladies we just spoke to said that she didn't have any experience of working, and actually, skills are a really great way to showcase some of your fantastic things you do outside of work that show that you might be good for the job. So even if you have no experience, you're still able to put some fantastic things on your CV. Now, I'll show you this a little bit later on, but we've also got a webinar a little bit in a few weeks, not too sure exactly when, where we actually talk about the type of skills that you can take from your life and put in your CV, and it makes you look even more experienced than you are. Employment history, this is the big one. This is the one that people are going to be most interested in. So if you have any employment, even if it's not in this country, then this is a fantastic thing to put in there. One of the ladies spoke about doing some volunteer work or some work experience, and that's exactly the sort of thing that we're going to put in here as well. Education, so going to school, college, university, any of those types of things, this is the information that we're going to have in the CV. One that I think a lot of people forget is actually around professional development. So all we mean by professional development is anything that you have done to improve your skills outside of education. So if you have gone on a first aid course at work, if you have trained on how to use a computer system in a job that you've worked before, or anything that you've done in your personal time that is not located to your education. Any volunteering that you've done, any hobbies that you have, and then finally any references that you have. So we'll talk a little bit more about these in a moment, but this is about actually just putting the name of the people who can give you a reference, or alternatively, adding a very simple sentence at the end, which is that references are available on request. I'll take you through some of these in a little bit more detail shortly. So some of the other things that you need to think about with your CV, and these are kind of the don'ts. So don't put any pictures or icons on your CV. It used to be quite common practice, but now actually they just want to see words and they want to see nice, clear writing on your CV. Try not to put any big details around the referees. So rather than kind of putting a reference onto your CV, just pop the names of the people and their phone numbers or email addresses. One thing that's really important that, again, a lot of people make the mistake on is they try to hide the gaps in their CV. So people will have career breaks for many different reasons. And here's one example, which is childcare and maternity and things like that. Explaining those gaps rather than avoiding them is a really great way to make sure that you're being honest. And finally, just make sure that you're not writing lots and lots of words. The idea is that it takes a recruiter 6, 7, or 8 seconds to do an initial review of your CV. That's not a very long time. So you need to make sure you stand out from everybody else and that it's really easy to read, Using bullet points and really short sentences is a fantastic way to get seen. Okay, so what to update is really important here. So what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit about your work experience, because this is one of the most important parts of your CV, as the recruiter will be able to see what you've done before, but it also gives them an idea of what you can do moving forward for the company you're applying for. If you don't have any experience at all, it's not a problem. I imagine you've done lots of fantastic things with family members, with friends, all those sorts of things that would actually highlight some of the great skills that they're looking for. Um, One of the other things to think about as well is actually the more information you have about your most recent job, the more detail you want to go into. And then the further back you go in your experience, actually you put less and less information as you go through. So here's a really simple example of what a CV should look like. So you can see from the set that actually it's a really simple CV. It's really easy to find the person's name, their email address, and their phone number. And then straight away, just in that first glance, you get to see their personal statement and actually their key skills. This is going to be the 6, 7, or 8 seconds that your recruiter is going to look at the CV. So you really want to grab their attention at this point. Your CV should be about 2 pages. If it's only 1 page, it can feel like you don't have enough experience or skills. And if it's more than 2 pages, it can feel like a lot for the person to read. So we want to make it really easy. A really great tip is to use font that's really easy for everyone to use. So the people with dyslexia, for example, if you use a really simple font that you'll find in any Microsoft Office or Word package, is Verdana or Arial. Again, these are all in your how-to guide. So if you wanted to have a look through those, we'll send those through afterwards. Another thing to think about is the size of your font. So actually the size should be no smaller than 10 and no bigger than 13. I tend to go for 11. That fills the page out nicely and it's really easy for people to read. And as I said, use bullets and write as little text as you possibly can. This just means that people can get the attention they need to the right places in your CV. So let's have a little look then at all these different places. So you can see here at the top, you've got your name, your email address, and your phone number. With regards to the address, you don't have to put your whole address. It's actually quite simple if you put Lambeth or if you put the first part of your postcode. It just gives your employer an idea of how long it's going to take you to get to work and if it's reasonable for you to be applying for a job in that area. So in your personal statement, this is really important. So actually selling yourself at this point is a really great way to do it. Now, we've got some fantastic tools and videos that you can watch that can help you write your personal statement. But all we want is one paragraph here, and all we want to do is talk about why you're so fantastic and why they should consider you for the role. Now, the personal statement is important for everybody, but especially if you don't have any experience, because this is a great way to get the attention of the recruiter. Moving down to the key skills, this is a really great way for you to put some fantastic skills that you definitely will already have that you probably haven't thought about before. So the type of skills that employers are looking for are things like communication skills, computer skills, things like organizational skills. Obviously, if you're applying for a role in customer service, then they're going to be really hot on customer service skills. If you've managed people before, then management skills are a great thing to put in there. If you've ever done any problem solving, and if you do have children, you definitely would have done this, then problem solving skills are great. They really like to see things like good time management, things like team player, because actually you're probably going to be working with a team. So these are really great things to think about for your CV. And again, we've got all of these handy links and videos, things like that for you to watch after this webinar. So if we have a little look down the rest of the CV here, you can see that we started to put employment, and it's very simple. You put the job title, the company name and location, and then how long you worked there from and until. At this point, you're going to give a really brief introduction to what the company does and a little bit more about what you did in that company. So under key achievements, if you worked in an office, for example, you could say, I looked after the diaries of the people in the office, or I looked after the printers, I organised meetings, all of those sorts of things. If you're a cleaner, you could talk about how you were a key holder because you had keys to the building and therefore you're trustworthy. You can talk about all of the fantastic things you did there. If you are a teacher before, or you've worked in schools, you could talk about some of the fantastic things that you did when you worked in schools. Now, if you don't have any experience at all, that's no problem. You can actually just put any of the volunteer work you've done, any work experience you've done, but also anything that you've done in your personal life that shows that you've got the skills that they're looking for. One of the top tips here is to make sure that you keep it short and sweet. You want to make sure it's really easy for people to read. And I'd have maybe up to 4 or 5 different employments if you've had that many. Pick the ones that are the most impressive and try to make sure the dates are consecutive. So on the second page, you'll see a further job experience, but then you start to move down to the certificates and memberships. So it's really important at this point to think about any certificates that you've had, any qualifications, anything that you think will really impress the recruiter, even if it's just something very small like a one-day course or an online course. Really important here. And then you've got your education. So this should come further down on your CV, but some CV templates tend to put them at the top, and that's absolutely fine. So you want to put the university, college or school, and obviously the details of those. This can be quite hard to figure out, especially because most of us haven't been to school for a really, really long time. So your best bet is to try and figure out the kind of dates you're working around there. Okay. And then you move on to your personal interests and hobbies. So this is a really great way to give the recruiter a view of who you are. They want to see that you're going to fit with the team, that you have some great hobbies outside, but also the good thing about this is they can see some of the skills that they might be looking for that you haven't been able to highlight in your experience so far. One of the great tips I can give you around this is to make sure that you're looking at the advertisement for the job, because there's certain words in there around skills and experience that you can put here in your personal interests. For example, if the advert asks for somebody that is a great organizer, then you can say, in my personal time, I organize church events or events for my family, or I'm always helping out on the school trips, those sorts of things. They're really good examples of the great skills that they're looking for. And then finally, you can see there with references, you can either put the names, the details of the references, or you can say that references are available upon request. If you don't have work experience in general, then actually you can use people that you kind of have done volunteer work with, or people in your life that would be able to give you a good reference and show that you're a trustworthy person. Okay, so if we have a little bit of a think here, if you don't have any experience in the UK previously, and you do have experience in another country, then that's fantastic, because it's really great for the recruiter to see the experience that you've had before. As we said, if you don't have any experience at all with work because for whatever reason, then don't worry, because you can actually just talk about the skills and the experience that you've got in life. And if you come along to our skills session, which I can't remember exactly when it is, but it's soon, we'll talk about how you can transfer those skills from life into your CV. Okay, so moving on to explaining career breaks. So just to give you an overview of what career breaks might mean. So There's lots of different reasons that you might have had one, and a career break basically means that you have not been working for a period of time. So a career break can be anything from a couple of months to many, many years. So if you have worked and there happens to be a gap in your experience, then it's important to explain why that is. And here's just some of the reasons this might be. So perhaps you were caring for young children, they might have been your children or somebody else's children. Perhaps you were caring for elderly relatives or somebody else. Perhaps you had poor physical or mental health at the time and you needed to be able to rest and recoup. Perhaps you were traveling or you were moving around. Lockdown is obviously quite a big thing that people have put in on their CVs now, but also the fact that you are actively job searching. So there's definite ways that you can change the wording here, and it's really important to be really transparent, but also talk about the things that you learnt during that time in those career breaks. So if you had however many years off to have maternity and care for your children, then actually what skills have you learnt during that time? What have you kind of really got better at? Are you more patient now because you have children? Are you um, a better team player now because you've been working with lots of other mums to organise events and stuff like that? So some really great things that you can look at there. And also, whilst you're job searching, we'll send you the links again. I think it's really important to make sure that you are keeping yourself upskilled. So coming on sessions like this is a really great thing to talk about whilst you're job searching. So just some additional tips. I'm just going to run through them nice and quickly. But with these additional tips, it's really important to be succinct and clear. Be really clear on your CV, make it really easy to read, and also don't forget to sell yourself. Being really coy about things and being a bit shy about your experience is not going to help you get an interview. So actually just make sure you're being really, really clear on some of the fantastic skills that you have. And also don't forget to add things that are nothing to do with work. You'd be surprised how important those skills are when it comes to somebody looking at your CV. Don't forget your hobbies and use a free online CV builder if you don't have a CV already. There's a free one on Read that I have a link in the handy guide, which I'll show you the handy guide now. This is what it looks like, and we will email it over to you afterwards. And in here are lots of fantastic hints and tips and videos and courses and links that you can click on to learn more. So when, why, and how to write a cover letter. So if you've never heard of a cover letter before, it's basically a letter that goes along with your CV, and it's a great way to stand out from the rest of the applicants who applied for the job. So this is your chance to really show off how excited you are for the role and actually that you have understood what the job is for. There's some really great templates. Again, there's one on Read, which we've got an example for, which we can send over, but also some really great links so you can be walked through it. But here's some really simple tips to help you write your cover letter. So have a great opening. And again, we've got some great advice here. We want people to kind of feel really comfortable. You want to be friendly, you want to be approachable, and you want to refer to the role that you're talking about. So tell them why you think you'd be a great customer service person in a shop, or why you think you'd be a fantastic phlebotomist, all of those sorts of things. Explain what you can bring to the role. So, stating I don't have much experience, but actually I can bring friendliness, I can bring team leadership, I can bring lots of fantastic skills that you're looking for. And then what you do is you bring it all together in a summary. You close the letter professionally by saying yours sincerely or kind regards. And then just remember to be yourself. Finally, don't forget to personalize each letter according to what's in the job advert as well. Now, I know I skimmed through that very quickly, but it's because we've got a great guide that we can give you access to, so you can have a really good look through that when you've got a little bit more time. Okay. So a quick summary of the top tips. So be prepared, make sure that you've got everything you need and you're set up, you have great Wi-Fi, you're able to access a computer or a laptop, and that you try not to have any distractions when you sit down to write your CV. We want you to do some research on the industry and job type. The reason that we put this in here is because you might have always done the same type of job because you felt like the only job that you could get. But actually, finding something you really love to do and either training for it or working towards it is going to give you lots of job satisfaction, and it's going to make you really happy in the long run. Don't forget to sell yourself, okay? I know we're very uncomfortable with this, especially women. I think it's really, really important to make people understand why you're so fantastic. You want them to know why it's really important that they call you in for an interview, and then you can sell yourself properly at that point. Use the tools that are already there. You know, we have a saying, don't reinvent the wheel. These tools are fantastic. Recruiters love them. It makes it really easy for them to look through. So if there's a free online CV builder or cover letter builder, then please use them. It will save you lots of time and it will make it look really professional. And then finally, whenever you're writing a cover letter, just make sure it's personal. It's really important to personalize it according to the job advert that you've seen. Like I said, you can pick out some really great wording, some fantastic skills that they've put in the advert. You can put them in your cover letter. You can adapt your CV to that, and it means you're way more likely to get an interview for the job. Okay, that's it. We're over to the question and answer section. So I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask Anna to stop recording for me. And then what we will do